Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight with our event, Books with Sarmad. It's a bit strange, I can't see your faces, but I'm still very glad you're here joining us. My name is Dokus van der Made. I'm curator of academic and public programs here at formerly known as Witte de Wit. I'm today joined by my colleague Lien, who's helping us with technique, for whom I'm already thanking her, on a safe distance, and with Ali by Sarmad, who's with me here in Meli in our downstairs space. And we're also joined by Golnar and Arvan, who are with us via Zoom from home. So that's the current situation of our setup of our conversation. If I understand correctly, then you as participants joining us can all reach out with questions through the Q&A section. And throughout the talk by Sarmad, we'll have 2 moments where we'll interrupt or have a moment to translate some of the questions through the Q&A from you to Ali and to Golnar and Arvan to get into the questions that you have at home. That's about it. In a minute, I'll give the proverbial microphone to Ali. But first, well, I think most of all of us will know who Sarmad are, but I'm still going to introduce them. Sarmad is a Rotterdam-based independent platform for research, publishing, collective thinking, and pedagogy. I think the last couple of years, most of us in Rotterdam know them from events and their publications. In my case, especially around Unmaking Image. And still, I think connected to that, currently Sarmad is focused on the intersection of images, norms, and power. And I think a lot of you who I see in the attendees list know each other from previous events of Sarmad. It took some time before we finally were here, because I think it was originally planned earlier for this year, but then a lot of things happened. But I'm happy that finally we're here. So thank you for joining us at home, Golnar, Arvan, and here Ali.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I mean, I was concerned that maybe there are not going to be a lot of people, but it's quite nice to see that some people showed up. So thank you, and thank Dokus and Lien for their invitation and for your support. Okay, so today we're going to basically, this is basically part of the books series of book sessions of formerly known as Witte de Wit. And so, what we are going to do today is essentially basically introduce you a list of books that we think you should read. Like, like the way that we came up with the list, it was a bit, I mean, it's kind of what fascinates us, the 3 of us, Golnar, Arvan, and I. And I think they're quite diverse, so you might think that some of them don't really fit in the group. But I think there are some common things that connect all of these books. And I think the most prominent one is that they're kind of, all of them are coming from, maybe you could say, non-Western frames of thinking, let's say. So let's just start with the first book. I think it's better. So the first book is The Question of Power. I guess everybody is seeing the presentation. So this is the cover of the book, A Question of Power. by Bessie Head. Um, so, okay, so this is basically the only, or maybe, I mean, this is kind of the only work of fiction on the list. There's another book which is also fictional, but this is like the only novel that we have on the list. The rest of the books are basically nonfiction. So this one was written in the 70s. It's a novel, and we chose this one because, like, now, like if you look for African literature, or let's say classic African literature, Bessie Head is not one of them, like the top names, like guys like Achebe, Chinua Achebe, or the other guy that we have on the list, Watiangu, who is like a very famous post-colonial thinker. And Bessie Head died in the 80s, in her late 40s. And this is basically essentially a novel, an autobiographical novel. And it's the story of a woman called Elizabeth. And the novel takes you in and out of insanity all the time. So this is this woman called Elizabeth living with her child, with her little son. She was born and grew up in South Africa, and then moved to Botswana, which is just north of South Africa. And she is living in this village, and you might say she's kind of suffering from insanity. It's very autobiographical, and Bessie Head was herself born in South Africa and moved to Botswana, lived there as a refugee for 15 years before she got her citizenship. She was born in a mental hospital from a wealthy white woman and a black servant in South Africa in the 30s. Like it's the time where interracial relationships were basically not allowed. So she had a very complicated life. She studied teaching. She became a teacher and a journalist. She got involved in the Pan-African Conference. So she got arrested and she had to leave the country. So it's basically the story of this woman moving out of South Africa to Botswana, constantly being othered, and living in this kind of hostile environment where she's constantly seen as a foreigner. And she has serious mental problems. So she's constantly seeing these images. And like the novel follows these images, which might go on for like 2 days in a row. And she's completely paralyzed in those 2 days. And then after those 2 days, she wakes up from that nightmarish, from that nightmare, let's say. And then she has to go about her daily life. So you're gonna have these like different sections in the book. That's why I say it takes you in and out of insanity, because like you have these very intense episodes where she's seeing these like crazy images and she's being tortured by these two men. The book has 2 chapters. One is called Cello, the other one is called Don, and both of them are the name of the 2 men that she sees in her dreams. So anyways, so if you're interested in, like, let's say classic African literature, and you want to read something, you have to be a little bit patient with this, because this is not somebody like a writer who sat in her, behind a nice desk in peace and wrote a novel, like this is a different piece of literature, It's like, I have the impression that she was suffering from these images so much that like she started writing to be able to survive in a way. So it's, I would say it's a unique piece of literature, but you really have to be patient with it. I don't know if you're into that kind of stuff, but if you're patient and you keep it in mind that it's not a writer sitting in peace and writing, after 40, 50 pages, I think you'll be amazed. Okay, enough. Can I go to the next book, maybe? Yeah, so the next book, this is the African writer that I was talking about. Maybe, I mean, a lot of people know this guy, especially if you're into like so-called post-colonial discourse, you know him. Like he's a radical voice out of Africa, particularly Kenya, since the 60s. And the book is called Moving the Center, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, The Struggle for Cultural Freedoms. And I was thinking that maybe I don't know, do we have the table of contents in the next slide maybe? So that we can take a look at that. Yes, this is the table of contents. So if you look at the main sections, the first one is freeing culture from Eurocentrism. Second one is freeing culture from colonial legacies. Third one, freeing culture from racism. And the last one, Matigari, Dreams and Nightmares. And so he is a novelist, and he's a post-colonial writer and essayist. And he isn't like a big figure, and he's been traveling all over the world giving lectures in like the most prestigious universities all over the world. And actually this book is basically a collection of essays, and the essays that came out of those lectures that he gave in different universities, and like the way they developed over time. He has another book called Decolonizing the Mind, and that one is also a fascinating book, especially in terms of language. Maybe I read a little bit, and maybe I go back to that language issue. I marked parts of the book. Let me see. Okay. For if the struggle to shift the base from which to view the world from its narrow base in Europe to a multiplicity of centers was reflected in the new literatures from Asia, Africa, and South America, it was not similarly reflected in the critical and academic institutions in the newly independent countries, or in Europe for that matter. The study of the humanities meant literally the humanity contained in the canonized tradition of European critical and imaginative literature, and further confined within the linguistic boundaries of each of the colonizing nations. The English department at Makerere, which is in Kenya, where I went for my undergraduate studies, was probably typical of all English departments in Europe or Africa at the time. It studied English writing of the British Isles from the times of Chaucer, Spenser, and Shakespeare up to the 20th century of T.S. Eliot, James Joyce, and Wilfred Owen. This narrowness in the study of literature based on purely national tradition was alleviated in countries where there were other literature departments, for example, French, and it goes on about that. So he's basically arguing, particularly in case of culture, and particularly in terms of literature, how having a center doesn't make any sense, basically. Needless to say, the encounter between English and most so-called third world languages did not occur under conditions of independence and equality. English, French, and Portuguese came to the third world to announce the arrival of the Bible and the sword. They came clamoring for gold, black gold in chains, or gold that shines the sweat in factories and plantations. If it was the gun which made possible the mining of this gold, and which affected the political captivity of their owners, it was language which held captive their cultures, their values, and hence their minds. The latter was attempted in two ways, blah, 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 blah. So in terms of this last one was from the section on English, is number 4, imperialism of language, English as a language for the world. And I have to say that this is kind of a classic now. This was written early 90s. So it's like, but what I wanted to say about Yonga is that he's one of the pioneers, like the first guys who started arguing for he questioned African literature. Like, you know, in the 20th century, we have like these very successful African writers. But he asked the question like, okay, what is African literature? Is it something written by an African person in colonial languages? Or is it something written by an African person in an African language? You know, like arguing that all that literature, like 20th century to also 21st century, successful, established literature that we know was written in English, French, or Portuguese, basically the main colonial languages. And he's one of the first guys, the pioneers who like made a case for writing in native African languages. Okay, maybe I'm talking too much. Can we go to the next one? Sorry. There's an amazing book, Buddhism of Whiteness, Critical Reflections. It's so there are 2 editors, George Yancey, who is a professor in philosophy working on critical whiteness studies, and Emily McRae, who is also a professor of philosophy, but she's an expert in Tibetan Buddhism and its ethics and its moral psychology. So it's basically 2 guys, one of them from like whiteness studies and one from like, you know, Buddhist philosophy. And can we go to the next one? It's a collection of essays from different writers. So it's like 15 essays by 15 different writers. So they approach this subject of Buddhism whiteness from very, very different perspectives. And I think that's what makes this book really interesting. So you can't really say this book is about, like, you know, say Buddhism whiteness. Okay, what the book is exactly talking about, you can't really tell, you know, because each of these essays is doing something else, you know. And some of these essays are obviously more interesting than the others. But it's a fascinating collection. And to give you an example, for example, number 14 says, a Buddhist phenomenology of the white mind. This is amazing. This is amazing. It studies whiteness and how the white mind works, looking at it within the like a Buddhist frame of thinking, where, you know, mind and self, and, you know, they have their own concepts. They're like, you know, self and mind, and they're like kind of like, anyway, you should read it. But to give you an example, for example, number, let me see, number 3, number 3, white delusion and avidya, a Buddhist approach to understanding and deconstructing white ignorance. This is really interesting. So it's like using Buddhist teaching or Buddhist frames of thinking to understand whiteness and to deal with it. And one thing I have to say is that, you know, like the whiteness that we're saying here, obviously it's not only like, it's not about skin, the color of skin. It's like, I mean, I personally think that everybody who was exposed to whiteness is to some extent suffering from whiteness, including myself. So it's it's like understanding, you know, that thing that is constantly moving inside you or inside your brain in the background, and deal with it better. And just to mention another one, number 4 says whiteness and the construction of Buddhist philosophy in Meiji Japan. This is fascinating. It's like, it explains how, you know, you have Zen, which is like the Japanese version of Buddhism, which is by no accident is the most discussed form of Buddhism in the West. And this one argues, like explains how at the end of the 19th century, when Japan opened up to the world, how they started using basically Western containers and pouring Zen into it in a way. So for example, he explains that, like words like philosophy or religion or ritual and things like that, they didn't exist in Japanese. It's when the Japanese scholars started formulating like Zen teachings to the outside world, which is essentially to the West, that, they actually started making up these words. So before that, you couldn't say Zen is a religion or is a philosophy or is a ritual, but Okay, maybe we can go to the next one before because I love these books. I tend to talk too much about them. I love this book. This is like next level. A Monk's Guide to a Clean House and Mind. And there's nothing about whiteness. There's nothing about post-colonialism. There's nothing about it. It's very basic. It's basically about cleaning your house and the practice of cleaning your house. And it's written by a Zen monk. I think he's with this temple in Tokyo. And he's a very interesting person. He's written a few books and he has this kind of cafe and this interesting website. Yeah, this is the table of contents. As you can see, it's very basic. So the first one is understanding cleaning. Then you have the kitchen, bathroom, and toilet. That's the first chapter. Second chapter is other parts of the home, personal items, repairs and maintenance, outside the home, body and mind. Now, I think this book kind of it helps me with my life a lot. It kind of saved my life because I used to be, I'm not a super like a clean person. It's not like you come to my house and you're like, wow, it's shit is so clean, it's not like that. But this book made a change for me from, I used to be like, okay, like you clean when there's something dirty. When there's something is obviously dirty or too messy, I clean it, right? But this guy talks about how cleaning is not just about having a clean place to live. He argues that, again, from not inspired, maybe like directly following Buddhist thoughts on this issue, that the act of cleaning, when you clean your house, it's not only about the result that you get a clean house, but also the act of cleaning your house is essentially the same as cleaning your mind and heart, So that would be maybe the main message of the book, which really changed my life, kind of. And it's full of really beautiful illustrations. This book, very simple and very interesting. So, I can read something from here. It's really nice. It's like, so it's on the bottom right, the second paragraph from the bottom. It's like, one thing so he's talking about the kitchen. One thing that I would like to pay particular attention to while cooking is to shut any drawer or cabinet door you have opened. When you're busy, it is easy to forget to do it, but this is a sign of your heart being untidy. After taking something out, you must close what you have opened. This not only helps to prevent dust from coming in contact with tableware, but also keeps your heart tidy and clean. So this is the kind of stuff that you read in this book. And I think if you're open to the message, it can really make a big change in your life. Can maybe see the other slides quickly? So this one talks about the floor and cleaning the floor. So the bold part on the right is like when you're polishing the floor, you're polishing your heart and mind. It's talking about like when you find a spot on the floor, a dirty spot on the floor, and you clean it. It's like you're cleaning a spot from your heart. Can I go to the next one? So, yeah, for these ones, I just wanted to show you the illustrations. They're really cool. Yeah.
Do you hear us? We wanted to propose to also read the one on the right, how to clean your lights.
Why don't you do it?
Okay. I can do it.
Oh, I can do it. I don't know.
No, I'll read. Because it relates to the stuff that we're going to also talk about later, we felt. How to clean your lights. First, remove the dust with a feather duster. Then wring out a moist cloth and wipe the surface carefully. Do this with a friend or loved one if possible. One person can support the stepladder while the other person works atop it. The person at the bottom can also hand tools and supplies to their partner as needed. Clean the lamps and fixtures gently as you're polishing your heart and soul to make them shine their brightest.
It's amazing. This book is really amazing. Everybody should read this book. Yeah. Okay. So this is maybe like I can actually kind of like ask my colleagues to take over from here. I don't know if you have any questions. No, not yet. Guys, if you have any questions or comments, or you want to say something, or you want to, just write it in the Q&A section. Okay, go on, Arvin.
Are we good? Should we continue, Dokos? Yeah?
Yeah, but we need to say hi first. I mean, you forgot to say that at the beginning. So, hi everyone, thanks for joining.
Hi, this is Arvind. My name is Golnar.
Okay. Do you want to start?
Yeah, so this one publication relates to the things that Ali already talked about in a very, in a very interesting, probably also vague way. So this publication is one of our most beloved publications. This was given to us actually by a really good friend a few years ago. And I think when I got the book, I was like, okay, this is really weird. What is this? But we just find ourselves going back to it a lot, like as we are, as we're thinking about publishing and as we're like formulating how, like the different formats that we can work in, we keep going to this book. This is a publication coming from an Egyptian independent publishing house called Kaifata. It's a publishing initiative that uses a popular form of how-to manuals. How-to means Kaifata means how to respond to some of today's perceived needs be they the development of skills, tools, thoughts, or sensibilities. So this is the first publication that they have made, Kaifata, and maybe I should mention that the publishing house Kaifata is founded in 2012 by Ala Yunus and Maha Ma'moun, who are two Egyptian artists. So I think so far they have had less than 10 publications, and they're all like how-to manuals. For example, how to know what's really happening, how to love a homeland, how to spell the fight, how to remember your dreams, etc. So this first publication called How to Disappear, we kind of came to know the context of this only beginning of this year, actually a few months ago, where the Ala Yunus and Maha Mamoun, they were talking about the publication of this book in the context of the revolution in Egypt, basically, and the sense of frustration that was coming out of that context. And so in a way, the book is to think about how to disappear politically and how to reappear politically. And there's I think it comes from a sense of so when the revolution is over, things are not necessarily better, and that sense of frustration and anxiety, how to talk about these things in a context that is it's really hard to talk about these things politically. So this publication we have gone through the table of contents. Maybe I'll go back to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can zoom in. So there are a few exercises called preliminary exercises: how to disappear, how to reappear, how to listen to your inner voice, how to find meaning in that time, how to change your frequency, how to join a group, and how to break with a group. And it's there's an annex in the end that's called The Sounds of the Middle Classes. So the whole book kind of revolves around this idea of the sound. And I guess there's references to thinking about what are the voices that are heard and how to have your voice be heard in a group, thinking about maybe, I don't know, the group as a nation and the different voices and I don't know, noise, and in this very political context.
Yeah, we sort of found this book as sort of a counteract toward toward an environment, and it's quite has a presence of a speciality in a book. It talks a lot or in the exercises, most of them starts by the space, going to public space, choose public space, sit in a room, and so on and so forth. Or and it's this one is it's a manual to get disappeared, which is it's completely about going to public space and starting to just listening all the voice in a public space as they are in the same distance as you, and you understand all of them, you hear all of them in one frequencies. And then after you achieve that moment, you start listening to your inner voice, and in counteract toward disappearing, the reappearing is to going inside your home and turn on all the noisy electricity based equipments and start to fill your ear with so much noises and so on and so forth. But something about this book for us, I mean, I use it as a reference here and there, and I think it's important because of that point of counteracting toward the environment, toward what you are what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and what you're at the moment. And besides this book, this how to books from Kaifata is kind of I kind of consider it as book which came out of a struggle, and I think that's kind of a really a powerful point of initiating such a platform as they do. It's really beautiful, all the books they have. Do you want to read this?
Should I read it, or do you want to?
I think you read it better.
Really?
Yeah,
Sure?
definitely.
Okay.
Sure.
So I'm going to read, is it the third exercise?
Yeah, so third.
It's a fourth exercise.
Oh, we
that
don't
is-
have it in the slides. No.
no.
Okay, that's even better. Cool.
I'm going to read the exercise that is called How to Find Meaning in Dead Time. So that is after you have disappeared and you have reappeared and you have listened to your inner voice, now you're finding meaning in that time. Excuse me. 1. If you sit in your room for hours, on end with nothing to do, place an empty cassette tape in the player and press the record button. 2. The player will record the sounds of your room on the cassette tape, passing sounds drafting in through the windows and random interior sounds like the opening or closing of a door, the compression of the mattress if you sit on the bed, water passing through pipes located near your room, the telephone ringing if someone calls you, and the room's murmurings of no identifiable source. 3. Listen to the tape that you have recorded. 4. You will be struck with boredom the first time you listen to these random sounds, devoid of any meaning. 5. Overcome your sense of boredom and listen a second, third, and fourth time. 6. Starting with the 5th time you listen, you will begin discovering meaning in the sounds you hear. You will sense that their ordering is not haphazard as you had thought, but rather that a clear logic governs them, as though a musical genius had composed them. The formerly random sounds are now organically interjoined. As soon as you hear the window hinges moving, for example, it is only logical to immediately hear a car passing by on the street. 7 and last, listen one more time. Note that what you're hearing is the sound of long, empty hours, and that the newfound meaning that you have gradually grown accustomed to is that very emptiness you had been experiencing, now abstracted from your feelings and thoughts and presence. You will discover that emptiness is not in itself an absence of all meaning, but rather your inability to understand new meaning. And then after this, you'll go on to change your frequency. So yeah, the format is very, very simple. But what is really fascinating about this is that it really puts you in the space and puts you in the space of the middle class home, and it kind of talks about all of these noises, and in a very subtle way is like a political publication. Another reason that we really feel really attached to this book is that, like us, Kafata is an independent publisher, and that, I don't know, there's something really meaningful about this. Should we go on to the next one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is a.
Come closer to my.
This book. I mean, we found this book. I mean, it's a book full of etchings and etching drawings from Brodsky and Otkins to like Russian architects from 40s, 50s, I guess. We came to this book so like quite like way later than we got fascinated by the drawings. I mean, we first found drawings everywhere in the internet, and then we got these books, and the book itself has a lot of more stuff to share with us. And but why we put like this book in the list is because, I mean, for us this has quite a lot of like meaning. I mean, maybe that's, yeah, this is Brodsky and Utkins. This is the yeah. So I think this is like it's really interesting because first, like me and Gulnar, we because of our background, we were like so like always like discussing about these books as like something which changed our mindset of like thinking about architecture in like sort of like unconventional way of like doing architecture, understanding architecture, and seeing like so many other ways to look at such a profession, which is like was always be part of like being part of power structure in some sense. And for us, this book was sort of like breaking down that power structure from the conventional one. And like why, I mean, I think that it's the why they did these drawings. I think it's very important because like it was a time which you like as an architect this is we're talking about like Soviet Union era. So
the drawings were made in the 70s and
70s
80s,
and
but the book
80s,
was published way later.
Way later, yeah. So we are talking about that era, and which if you wanted to be an architect and work as in a conventional format and do like construction, you needed to work directly with the power structure, directly with the government. And these two guys, they didn't want to do that. They avoid the system, and they started to producing these fascinating drawings, which for us was like I don't know, like something which learned us like how to unlearn whatever we learn as an architect. And then later on when we got this quite fancy and nice book, and it was like, whoa, this is amazing. And like going through this book like hours and hours, every time I was coming to our place, taking this book from bookshelf literally every time, and like sitting and looking at the drawings and trying to read the legend of drawings and so on and so forth. But I mean to like I don't want to like.
And I'm not an architect, you know, and I'm not an architect.
Yeah.
I have nothing to do with architecture, but this stuff is so fascinating. Like these drawings of buildings that are not really meant to be built at all, and they're kind of absurd, no? Like this museum of buildings. So like these shelves of, you know, there's a whole building in each block, and that you know, it's like it's crazy.
Yeah. Just to give some context, maybe, yeah. So the drawings were not produced for this book. The drawings were produced in the context of the Soviet Union, and as Arvan was explaining, what it meant to work as an architect and the proximity you had to have with the state. And so these drawings came out of, there were like a bunch of young architects that were graduating and were like, we don't really want to do that, didn't really make sense to us, and what can we do? I think in the drawings it's also very clear the sense of frustration, and both I think politically, but also like maybe also from like a more disciplinary viewpoint. And so these drawings were produced as a way to kind of talk about things that was probably hard to talk about, and the way that you see the cities are portrayed, and they're very dark, they're horrific. Sometimes it's really depressing to look at them. Sometimes they're just really weird and funny also. But they are very much outside of the, you know, the normative practice, disciplinary architectural practice that you have. Drawings that are like very objective, and so all the information that you have in one of these, each of these plates contains those little text boxes that you see in the images, and that's the amount of information that is there.
Yeah, and so many of these drawings were like respond to the open call for a competition and such, and their response was these kind of drawings, this kind of like.
So the state was like making a lot of open calls for like architects.
Not even in Soviet Union, but also like all over the place. Like even from, they have a couple of drawings which they attend to the commission to the competition in Japan or like other places, and it's yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of like Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is like the importance of this for us is that, I mean, it's also like a little bit classic if you come from an architectural background to look at this, but I think it's important in the sense that this was like kind of the beginning of a movement which is more contemporary to us than all the other things that we learn about in the architectural canon. This is also part of the architectural canon. What is it, Dorcas?
You can see me, nice. So I was just curious to ask if they, so apparently they even sent some of these sketches even into these competitions. Like, were they the only ones who were sending these mad conceptual sketches in, or was that a practice already? Did others do that too?
They were some other radical groups, which when we now look at them, we just say like, oh, they were a bunch of hipsters. But no, like there were some movements also in Europe. There were like in Italy, there were like a couple of groups. They were doing like quite not similar, not like this detail, not like this static, but quite like denying like conventional form of producing architectural drawings and architecture in general. And these terms of like paper architecture came from this era, from like a couple of different groups, which they were just constantly like working and focusing on architecture in these manners.
Yeah, so it kind of, this was like the beginning of the creation of this mass of these kinds of practice emerging. So there were a lot of other people, architects, that started producing these drawings. So the book is like a collection of these etchings that were collected later by Ilya Otkin, that I'm probably a relative of Alexander. No, I'm not.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so I think someone collected the building. I'm not sure about the name now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think so. That maybe we should move on to the next one.
Yeah, but I just want to say some short thing maybe to relate that with the next one is that like another reason we put this like book in the list was because nowadays, like after Corona, we kind of like got this feeling, but it's a reality that after COVID-19, like architecture and public building and most of the public buildings, which they were like meant to have like public activities, like a museum, like universities, like so many other places like that, they also kind of lost their like the architecture, the building lost its prominence and meaning and function in some sense, and become like so vulnerable in like toward such an event. And for us was like, yeah, this is again, it's sort of like reading entire like a structure of architecture, like how we are sitting, like you're at the Melee, we are here at home, we are having this conversation, and like without like even sense of the physicality of architecture, physicality of one environment, but we are sharing maybe same content, but not same atmosphere, same like ambient, or and so on and so forth. Yeah. Okay, we will move. We talked a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. So
this one is a book that we have never seen physically in our lives. The Anti-White Spaces was a student project that also like comes from the context of architecture education. It was a student project that got published by self-published by that person called Sami Hamim. And so Sami Hamim published this book as part of her architectural project. There's more images of it. So we are going to receive the book from Samiha hopefully soon. But our introduction to this book has been through just people sending images of it on the internet. And so the book is not distributed. I guess the point is that the book isn't distributed in the same way as, commercial, when you work with a commercial publisher. And it's like a very fragile thing, I think, the existence of this book. And so the book thinks about, in a way, relates to the Brodsky and Otkin's drawings, but also, in a way, maybe also the monk and the books that like also maybe Bessie had everything that we have been talking about since the beginning in a very different way, and thinks about the white state of mind as, you know, as a dominant or as a default framework that defines the ways in which we are making spaces and inhabiting those spaces. So the publication is really simple. It's like a small book, and it's full of these like little, it's like a manifesto kind of like collection of these one-liner sentences, and or like really short things. And I would like to read a bit of it if it's not too much. Have we been reading too much? Or it's okay because this is a books event? Okay. So I'm going to read something that Samiha has used in kind of introducing the book herself. And it starts with, so it starts with a quote from Sarah Ahmed. Comfort is about an encounter between more than one body, which is the promise of a sinking feeling. To be comfortable is to be at ease with one's environment, that it is hard to distinguish where one's body ends and the world begins. White bodies are comfortable as they inhabit spaces that extend their shape. In other words, whiteness may function as a form of public comfort by allowing bodies to extend into spaces that have already taken their shape. Spaces we occupy do not extend the surfaces of our bodies. Having been singled out in line at the borders, we become defensive. We assume a defensive posture as we wait for the line of racism to take our rights of passage away. If we inherit the failure of things to be habitual, then we might also acquire a tendency to look behind us. To be not white is to be not extended by the spaces you inhabit. When you don't think, when you fidget and move around, then what is in the background becomes in front of you as a world that is gathered in a specific way. So this was Sarah Ahmed from A Phenomenology of Whiteness. So this book thinks about, like, takes this as a kind of departure point and thinks about, you know, the state of the white state of mind that is designing these spaces and constructing these spaces, but in a way that really extends both through, you know, disciplinary practices, but also like really everyday practices to my very body in this very space. And thinks about, you know, the presence of privilege in spaces. And I think the one of the reasons that it's fascinating is if you think about it from the point of view of design and especially architecture, it's a very difficult question to deal with, and it's a very difficult question to even frame. Yeah, what does it mean to be more sensitive to the existence of non-white bodies in space? And how can we discuss these things in ways that go beyond, I don't know, academic work, but it's actually from the lens of embodied experiences and embodied knowledges and the feelings that we already have been holding with ourselves for like years and years and years, and it's really hard to talk about, you know, formally, how it's very hard to articulate. So I think what the book does is that it just talks about these very, very difficult questions. And I think the book struggles to really articulate it in a concrete way what the question really, really is. But it's a really fascinating way to go about it, especially as an architecture project, but also generally to think about what are the bodies that extend and where does my body end and the world begins, and what does it mean in terms of when we're thinking about walls and floors and, I don't know, cleaning.
Yeah, I didn't have that much to add. No,
Okay.
I think that was great.
The next one is the last one, we promise. Okay.
It's not true. It's not the last one.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh, that is not true.
No.
Okay.
No, it's not true.
I
But
lied.
do we?
Sorry.
You want to skip this one?
No. I just want to see like time-wise how we.
How are we with time, Douglas?
I think we're fine time-wise. I don't. You don't have to rush. We stop in half an hour, but we're so I think we'll have plenty of time. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So with this book, because I mean, for us was like, I don't know how good we read this book or not, but I think it was sort of for me personally. I started like going through browsing to these books when I started to sort of like to teach, contribute to at Willem de Kooning Academy, and that was for me was kind of an like understanding of like, okay, now what how we can decolonize university. And this book, it's it kind of it came out of like an event, basically, and it's also it's basically, let's say, inspired by the event. It happened in 2015 in the university at Cape Town, which students they had the demand to take out the statue of like Cecil Rhodes, the imperialist, racist businessman, and like the face of like imperialism and colonialism, and he was white supremacist basically. And the demand was to take this statue down in a university, in the campus of University of Cape Town, and the demand was Rhodes must fall. And this book, it's a collection of different articles, which it got like sort of like inspired, or like it's kind of respond to that incident, that event, that which this the main argument of this book is we need to start decolonizing university from the colonizer land. We have to start it with the North global rather than South, and that was quite a moving point that to understanding like, okay, what does that mean decolonizing, and what does that mean diversity, and how they are related to the curricula, how much they are related to what we like, how teachers, students, activists, they are involved in this process. And in these, like most of the articles in these books, it's not only from the point of view of teacher or activists, it's also from like students. It's like when you want to like decolonize, you need to decolonize entire or redo entire system. But at the other hand was also like it's sort of like gave us sort of this feeling that, oh, how much even us, which our land like wasn't directly like colonized, how our curricula, how the discourses of our education was decolonized, that was colonized from Eurocentric knowledge to even like a little bit more like religion kind of based knowledge, and more like the foundation of modern university, for instance, in Iran, created by like French and German, and it's stayed the same, like whatever we learn in architecture, for instance, in knowledge of architecture, we learn the same as like, I don't know, 60, 70 years ago they were taught in Bauhaus, for instance. And it's that was kind of like a reflective book for me in some sense. I don't know, I think like for anyone who thinks we need to decolonize, or in some sense, I think this is quite important book to go through. It's a lot of like essays here written in really quite direct language, and I think it's quite like yeah, it's quite important to go through it, like because so many times we just when we are talking about decolonizing, we make this mistake, maybe it's not a mistake, it's just like to just only sort of like colorizing our environment, our curricula, or in our institution, but reality is much more fundamental. It's attitude, and I think this book goes through some of these points, these issues. Yeah, I think
Yeah, I just add to that, like the two reasons why this felt like an important book to have in this series. One is that, so one of the main arguments of the you know, the different collectives that have been in this, that have been, you know, that this book comes out of those activities, are kind of argue that you know, in a post-colonial world, the universities are one of the institutions that are not really decolonized, and the university is a place where knowledge is produced, and you know, theorization is still taking place, and so it's it's like a very fundamental. If you're thinking about, you know, the epistemologically, the world that we live in is produced through these universities. So even in a post-colonial world, if the universities are not decolonized, what are we doing? And another reason for that was that although we were discussing these things a lot, it seems, and there is a lot of work that is being done that is valuable, but it felt kind of important to go back to these first initiatives, because this is kind of, you know, it's one of the first books, and it's kind of, you know, the book is not for faculty only, or it doesn't come out of those activities. It comes from like student organizations and student initiatives and student activists. So it's really for, you know, faculty, student body, everybody that will be involved. And it's kind of addresses that also really important, the agency of the student body and the ways that they could organize, and or we could organize. So yeah, so it felt important to go back to this kind of maybe more classic read now, as a kind of way of going back to remind ourselves of the roots of things as we're discussing them more and more.
Yeah, exactly. Like when we are talking about like institution, like university, it's not just like changing out like the curriculum, for instance. It's like who are the founders of like who's providing money, who's catching up with the finances. Like there are like so many like I don't know, like for instance, like Shell has a lot of like funding like proposal or like contribution to universities for research proposals, for doing a research, or like funding like PhD candidates for the research. But what is behind, you know, like Shell itself, it has colonial history, and like, you know, how we can approach university while like such an entities they are involved, and so on and so forth. And it's like, I mean, like at the end, I just want to like that sort of like helped me to understand, for instance, like me and Golnar, we are like contributing to Willem de Koning and Golnar in Pizzart also, Pizzart Institute. But the thing is, like, I found out in some point that the urgency of me being in that institution is to bring my knowledge from the region which I'm coming from. I'm trying, like, I don't know if it's good or not, but intentionally I'm trying to show my to my classes, to my students that, yes, look at this example from Middle East, look at these artists from Middle East, look at this work from Middle East. And the reason I'm doing this, that this is a knowledge which we might not get in a university in Europe. Because everything is so, like, even like my knowledge, it was so Eurocentric, and I'm trying to change it or not. I don't know. Anyway, Ali, do you have anything to add to this topic, or we can like move to Sarah?
About this one? No, nothing like very special. I just think that it really connects to that other book, Moving the Center. I was reading parts of it, because that guy talks a lot about like how the curricula are designed, and how everything is centered around what comes out of Europe and North America. Or basically, even if it's not that, it's basically like literature or works written in European languages, So if the original thing is not written in a European language, it's gonna take some time to be read also. And I totally agree that, it's not like, this is, I think, a very important point to make, like decolonizing university is not something that is necessary for the universities in the West. The universities that we went to back in Iran, they need to be decolonized as well. Because if what you say about architecture, I think the same thing applies in literature, in theater, in arts, everything, Whatever is translated and is in the curriculum is either by some white Dutch, French, not Dutch, white French guy most of the time, or British literature, or like a British, yeah. So I think it's like it's not just a Western issue. I think we need to pay attention to that also. Yeah. And those structures, I think they when you go through this education system, those structures are like implicit in your thinking, and mine included, and it takes you a long time, maybe until the rest of your time, for the rest of your life, like you have to work and dig it out and deal with it, like this is so whatever.
Okay, maybe before maybe we just talk about unmaking image for like 2 minutes, and then we finish, and then we see if there are questions. If you need to finish at 7:30, I don't think we should. So unmaking image was, so just to kind of conclude this was with a series of our own publications of Sarmad, is unmaking image was like a 2-year-long project, and was a kind of a series of events that were taking place either as talks, discussions, performances, or and the idea was to think about the relationship between image making and power, between image and power. And so structurally, we were inviting different people to talk from the lens of their practice about this, including people like Inas Halabi, thinking about how the radio can also be kind of a colonial tool, but also a tool that kind of constructs our imaginary, or Armina Pilav, that's thinking about the archive and how the archive, the archives are lost, and the kind of, the idea of, I don't know, maybe decolonizing the archive, now that we have been looking at this last book. So kind of very much thinking about things that we have been discussing, but then through the lens of every person's practice from different backgrounds, or from, architects, artists, musicians. And so with each of these public events, it was accompanied by one of these publications. So the series of 11 publications that is now a complete series has been coming up just like as every event was taking place. And now like makes a collection as a whole. I don't know if you guys want to talk more about the unmaking image. I'm just very conscious
your
of time.
explanations. Well, what you say is pretty clear. I mean, it was like a kind of like a 2-year project, and so we did these public events, 11 of them, and we made a booklet for each of them, like kind of a summary, what happened in the event, or the main points. And each event was obviously with one different artist, and we didn't like so much restrict ourselves to like, you know, okay, we're talking about image, so it has to be people who literally work with image, but like yeah, we also try to like, you know, broaden like the definition of image, basically, like all, like, you know, the stuff that you read in image theory about verbal imagery and mental imagery and all those things. So we didn't restrict ourselves to only like visual artists or photographers. But that's about it, I think.
Yeah, maybe it would be nice to have some time for a discussion before we swallow all the time.
Yeah, this would be the moment for people at home if they want to drop any comments or questions.
Oh, should we stop sharing maybe?
Well,
Does that mean?
well, maybe it's still a nice backdrop, maybe, or.
Okay.
I'm giving the people at home some time before I step in. I can jump in with one of my own questions, but people at home, please just share any questions if you have them. I think I'm going to remove my ears. Yeah. So I had some questions throughout the talk, but I'm now quickly thinking which makes sense at the moment. Maybe one of the sort of, I had just some observations already from looking at your list and now hearing you today. Like it struck me at home already how extremely wide-ranging your list of publications was in references, in, I don't know, culturally, geographically, like from like Russian architects, they were Russian, right? I think so. To South African novelists, to Buddhism and whiteness. I was curious in general if that had a reason, and now we've had this talk. I'm also curious if that stems from this, if that's purposefully de-Eurocentric, let's say. Like where does that stem from? Where is that coincidence?
I think we didn't. I mean, Golan and Arban, you can, of course, obviously, you can have your own opinion about this, but I think we didn't pay so much attention in kind of like a designing a list. Like, okay, you know, it should be like diverse, or it should be like this, or it should be like that. I think they're pretty much like the things that we're fascinated with, and I think we just, I mean, if it seems like, you know, like they come from like maybe non-Western perspectives, I think it's just kind of what we mostly read, I think, or what I mostly read, you know. But yeah, like, particularly about those books about that have something to do with Buddhism, or, you know, like Buddhist thought. For me, those things were really helpful, if not enlightening, in like just, you know, just using a different, just to see and realize and acknowledge that there's this completely different frame of thinking, which sees things in a completely different, like things in a completely different framework. You know, that's enlightening for me.
Do you want to add something, Gunnar and Arvan, or should I follow up?
No, I think that is the answer. It's also the things that really interest us. I think let's go with Ali's answer and then maybe taking that like.
Yeah, maybe I can sort of piggyback on that, on those Buddhist references or publications, but also maybe in general these all these how-to guides, and I think there were quite a lot of publications around issues of care and mental health, which obviously has. And maybe which is interesting to share to the people at home also is that this a part of this list was already made before COVID happened, I think, and obviously lately or these times there's a lot of talk of care in general, but it's also very interesting to think about these publications now from the new perspective of sitting at home in COVID times. Like, have these publications, I don't know, spoke to you in new ways, or like did their meanings change?
Yeah, I will say something. Yeah, the list was completely made before. Actually, list didn't change after we had to reschedule because of the crisis. I mean, so maybe one example. Maybe you talk about what you were just telling me.
No, yeah, it's something like, I think it was like kind of coincidence that Ali gave this book to me after he done all the practices with it. He gave it to me in my birthday.
It's the monk book, this one.
Yeah, the monk book one, for instance, for my birthday, and it was in June. So we were like, oh, the school stuff, and like we had this show at Showroom Mama, Fiction and Comfort. And before starting like the show, like 3 weeks before starting the show, we had this how to call it, like this semi exhibition running around Rotterdam kind of thingy, which we had, like we prepared a bunch of like packages every week. And we had like one of our great friend helped us to distributing these packages with bike, Tommy Hilsey. This person is quite famous anyway, yeah. So we started like distributing content of this book. We made photocopies, and then we put it in the packages and distributed around. We had like a cycle of like 25 people around Rotterdam, which they were receiving the packages from us every week, and they were like going through these books as us. And when we met them at the opening of the show, they were all like, wow, this book kind of helped us. This book was really sort of like helped us during the COVID time, being at home and being alone at home to restructure our mind. But yeah, that's just like it was funny a story of like how the distribution of this book was also part of the practice of like you know, getting engaged with the.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, maybe the short answer would be that it's kind of been a coincidence, but it has been definitely the things that we have been discussing today have come literally handy during the crisis. And
Ali has
if Ali has something to do, I just realized that there is the question in the YouTube streaming, and then there's also in ours.
Shall I have a look in the YouTube stream if if there's questions there. Okay.
And Inaz has raised her hand.
Yeah, I asked Ines already in the chat if she has a question, but I can't get a response yet.
I don't know if this is a question.
No, I'm not. Oh, yeah, here we have some here. Let me see. Okay, I can share. I can share here from one of the participants. It was very interesting. First of all, we know only the how to disappear, and we wonder if we'll find them all. That's what they want to share.
If they can find them.
And we wonder if we'll find them all. I'm not sure what they mean exactly with it.
All the
So like
publications,
Mm.
other publication from Calcutta. Right?
Yeah, perhaps. Are like which of the publications did you just mention that there's one of the publications that you that you're going to try to offer on behalf of the publisher, or that you're going to try to order?
yeah, we're trying to order, but it's like really self-published.
Yeah.
Like it's out of stock, so you have to get.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that person. Yeah.
I think your mic is out.
No?
But I think also like they have like they working with one I know. But
Now you're talking about Calcutta.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can.
Okay, just to be clear,
Yeah.
you know, okay, all the books on the list, you can order them online, I think, except for maybe two. One is Anti-White Space. How to Disappear you can order, right?
Yeah.
So it's only Anti-White Space that is a bit tricky.
If you go to Sami Hamim's website, or if you put her name, you can buy it from them if you send them an email, and they will ship it to you personally. It's 25 euros.
Yeah, and how about your publications?
Send us an email.
Hey, I think let me see if there's. I see one. 1 second. I think we should wrap up. I think we're about there.
1 minute.
Yeah, I've got like 3 windows open, so I was trying to focus my concentration. Hey, I'm super happy to have had you all 3 over tonight. Some on screen from home, and some here in space, which maybe fits somewhat the double focus of image and spatiality of Sarmad. I don't know. We'll try to figure that out later. Hey, and it was really nice to have quite a large group of people attending from home. I hope we didn't miss any questions that the technology wronged you in, but I don't think so. I hope everyone had a really good evening. Thanks for all the beautiful publication tips. I'm definitely planning to order a couple. And just thanks for the lovely evening.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. And thank you everybody who joined the
Ali, we cannot hear you.
Oh.
We can hear you through Douglas's computer, so if you talk louder.
I'm just thanking everybody, Douglas, and the people who joined. So.
Okay, I think that was about it.
Hey,
We'll see each other soon, and have a great evening, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.